Hi, my name is Cole Layton and this is my second lab project. So due to our classes being held online, our projects were made using software called Factory.io, and this is just an overview of my project. I added 3 different stations into this. Each station has a control cabinet and can be ran in auto mode or manual mode. At each station, there's also a stack light. The red light indicates that the station is disabled. The yellow light indicates an alarm is active at that station, and the green light indicates that the station is currently enabled and is running. So here we can see the main control cabinet, and this cabinet controls all the stations when they're in auto mode. I also add an alarm siren to tell the operators if there's an alarm that's active and it needs attention. So now I'm going to quickly go over each station. Here we have the first one, the buffer station, and this just has 2 conveyors and a stop blade. Basically it just sends each box one at a time down to the pick and place machine. On the control cabinet there's a digital display that displays how many boxes have been used. The second station here is the pick and place. This uses a 3-axis robot to pick up each box and place it onto a pallet. There's a digital display as well that displays how many pallets have been used. So as soon as the boxes have been stacked, it moves on down the conveyor line to the automated warehouse. At the third station here, the automated warehouse, there are 4 operating modes. The first mode is a pallet load, and that's indicated by the green stack light over here. The second mode is a pallet unload mode, indicated by the yellow. The third mode is indicated by the red light, and that's the pallet failed mode. There's also a crane reset mode in the event that the E-stop is pressed and the crane needs to be reset home. So the first mode here, when the pallet passes through the light array and certain conditions are met, the crane is going to pick up the pallet and move it to the first storage location. The crane will always look for the first available storage position. The second mode we have here is the pallet failed mode. So if the pallet passes through the light array and not all the conditions are met, then the crane is going to pick up the pallet and move it through to the exit conveyor. The third mode is the pallet unload mode. The operator can select each storage position that they want to unload on the HMI screen, and then the crane is going to go to that position and unload each pallet. The crane is going to bring the pallet home and set it onto the exit conveyor. So here we can see a pallet in front of the loading area with no operating mode selected. We can tell that there's an alarm at this station because of the flashing yellow light. So this means that we need to put the crane into crane reset mode. The operator can do this by pressing the reset button, and the crane is going to pick up the pallet and move it to the exit conveyor. So this is the HMI screen that I made using Ignition. On the left here is the navigation bar, and it has the alarms indicator. This just tells me how many alarms I have and if an alarm is active. I also have my 6 navigation tabs and my E-stop button. My E-stop button also tells me if the E-stop has been pressed anywhere else on the floor. And then here's my PLC connected indicator, my time, and then this also allows a user to lock the screen, switch, or log out. So on the overview page we have the main stop and start buttons. We also have the indicators for the buffer, automated warehouse, and pick and place machines. On the bottom we have the total number of pallets used and boxes used, and their reset buttons. Each component is outlined by a box that indicates whether they're on or off. So this is the storage page. On this page you can see whether the automated warehouse is enabled or disabled, and you can put it into auto or manual mode. You can also start or stop the station. Down here is the crane indicator. It shows what mode the crane is in. So right now it's in the loading mode. So if I wanted to unload a few pallets, I go down here and select what pallets I want to unload and click Start Unloading. So as soon as the crane is done loading, it's going to go to each position and load each pallet. So this is the pick and place page, and over here we have indicators of what part of the process the robot is in. So we can see if the pallet or the box is in place, see what boxes have been loaded, and we can also see if the pallet is at the exit. And here's the Emit Pallet Override button. So this is the buffer page, and the buffer conveyor speeds are just displayed in percentages. It also has the stop blade indicator with the override button for the stop blade. So this is the alarms page. This page will show you what time, where the alarm came from. So we can see that the crane load was obstructed. The current status of the alarm, we can see that's unacknowledged, and the priority. So if I go ahead and acknowledge this alarm, it should disappear. The next page is the settings page, and this is strictly for the administrator. This just allows them to manage the users and also manage the roles. We'll go back to the overview page and click the E-Stop button. Here we see that it tells us that the emergency stop has been pressed. If I release the E-Stop button, I can go ahead and start the whole process. Now you can see that the whole process is on. So this is the PLC program that I made for my Factory.io project. And in here I have all the logic for each machine, broken up into 5 different programs. We'll start with the I/O map. So in this I/O map, I have each Boolean input from the Factory.io driver mapped over to a tag that is easily understood by the programmer. And each tag is also scoped within each program. So this auto selector switch has a buffer station scope. So that tag will show up in the parameters and local tags. Here we see the auto selector switch. I also mapped each Boolean output. Here's the analog I/O map, and this just moves each float or integer value into tags that are also scoped and more easily understood. So here's the pick and place. Here's the pick and place enabled bit and the stack light that goes along with it. Here's a few alarms for that. There's the conveyor logic, and then there's the positions. So when this position is commanded, it'll move these values into the set point. It's going to look at those set point values from the robot and compare them to numbers that I set. If those numbers compare, then it'll turn on the position 5 met bit. The next station is the buffer, and this is a pretty simple program. Here's alarms for the buffer. Then here's the automated warehouse. So here we have the 4 modes that you saw in the factory I/O. We had the pallet load, the pallet unload, the pallet failed, and the crane reset. And here we have the forks left command from each subroutine, as well as the forks right and the lift. Here's a look at what the pallet unload program looks like. This is the position subroutine. So this flip-flop timer increments this bit position by 1. And when the storage location used array, it's an integer array, that's indexed by the bit position, finds a 0, it's going to move that value into my auto target position. And that's where the crane is going to go next to load the pallet on the rack. So when the pallet is loaded onto the rack, the target position is the position that the crane was sent to. When those equal each other and the forks go right, it's going to move a 1 into my array. And that tells me that there's a pallet in that spot. Here's the flip-flop timer. And this is the unload logic. And this is basically just the opposite, except here, when you want to move a bit position into the target position, we check both the unload array to see that the user selected that position, and we also check the storage location used array to see if there is a pallet in that position. So then when a pallet is found and it's unloaded, we move zeros into the unload and the used arrays. So here are my schematics. And this is the first kind of drawing that I made to decide what I was going to do. And as you can see here, I ended up with a pretty similar factory, but I did change a few things. So you can see here that I added the 2 stop blades, as well as the light array, and the main control station. The light array is shown here. I also added a crane indicator to indicate that the crane was at the home position. A stop blade was added to the pallet conveyor because the pallets would always overshoot the sensors. And there's a master station. So from these schematics, I went to the actual AutoCAD schematics that you see here. And here I'm putting in all the inputs to the PLC. Quite a few inputs. Here's the outputs. And here is the analog. All the analog inputs are potentiometers. And a few of the conveyors are like PF525 drives. And here's the 2 digital displays. So here is the planning part of the project. So I had to write down the current situation, my proposed improvements, and a risk analysis. So I wrote down my plan. I said there's going to be 3 stations. I said I was going to improve on by adding stack lights to each station. And I did that, as well as add some other things. One risk that I identified was running out of storage locations and how I was going to handle that. And I ended up making an alarm so that they would know when the storage locations were full. One thing I would improve on that is make sure that when the storage locations are running low, that the operators would know. So here's my layout, and I kind of said what each station is going to do, what it's going to consist of. Here's the HMI. I actually ended up with 6 pages instead of 5, but they're very similar. And here is a summary. So overall, I thought it was a really good learning experience. It kind of taught me how to organize. That's something I didn't do right from the start, and I had to work hard because of that. Like I said, some of the improvements I made is I added a light array, and that really helped clean things up. One thing I would have done differently is add more features on the HMI. I really struggled with the scripting in Ignition. That's something that's new to me. That's something we had to kind of figure out on the run. But I did alright on it. It's pretty minimal, but I think I could improve that. So overall, I think this project was a very good learning experience. And Factory.io was a great tool if you want to improve your programming skills, just your all-around skills for everything. So I hope you like my project. Thanks for watching.